up on this Thursday edition of Newsline at noon, with North Korea threatening more nuclear tests in protest against the UN's condemnation of its human rights abuses. Experts say Pyongyang may be restarting its nuclear facilities. A surprise snowstorm in the northeastern United States kills at least 7 people and paralyzes transportation systems. Residents are bracing themselves for another blast of snow overnight. Plus, U.S. President Barack Obama's immigration reforms are expected to lift the threat of deportation for millions of illegal immigrants. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. It's noon Thursday, November 20th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broome. Let's begin with the news that, as widely expected, North Korea has lashed out against the passage of a UN draft resolution condemning the regime for its human rights violations.
Right. Pyongyang says it will strengthen its nuclear capabilities, stating a 4th nuclear test could also be on the cards. And experts in the U.S. say all signs point to the North making good on its pledge. Eoh Jin-joo has more.
North Korea is angry, and it's now threatening to conduct more nuclear tests. On Thursday, Pyongyang's foreign ministry issued a statement strongly rejecting a United Nations draft resolution referring North Korea to the International Criminal Court for Crimes Against Humanity. Calling it a U.S.-led attempt to overthrow the North Korean regime, the ministry said it will no longer refrain from conducting nuclear tests. Pyongyang has gone down this path before. Its nuclear reactors were shut down in 2007 under a disarmament agreement. But last year, North Korea restarted its reactors. And satellite imagery taken this month is indicating that the North might actually be preparing to reprocess nuclear fuel into weapons with bomb capabilities. Analysis done by the U.S. Research Institute 38 North says the plutonium production reactor at the North's Yongbyon nuclear facility appears to have been shut down for 10 weeks. The Institute's best guess as to why it was shut down for longer than it needs to be is that the North is replacing spent fuel rods and is preparing to start reprocessing them. The imagery also shows steam coming from a cooling tower that is consistent with maintenance, testing, and other activities that take place before operations begin. Along with that are signs of chemical waste outside a fuel fabrication facility. Analysts say this suggests new fuel rods are being produced to replace the spent ones. Lee Jun, Arirang News.
A North Korean student in Paris is missing after vanishing around a fortnight ago. The young man is a son of an aide to Jang Sung-taek, the man North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had executed last year. And rumors are the student knew that his father was executed as well, and his family sent to prison camps, and might have gotten wind that North Korean agents were trying to take him back to the communist country to do the same. Kwon So-ah reports.
The North Korean man, who had been studying in Paris for around 3 years, has been missing for more than 2 weeks now. French authorities are taking the case very seriously, considering the male student's close family links to Jang Sung-taek, the uncle of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who was purged and swiftly executed late last year. There's speculation the student, only identified by his family name Han, could be on the run from North Korean agents who want to forcefully repatriate him to the north.
We don't know the whereabouts of the student. We are currently assessing how credible this case is.
Han had been studying at the École nationale supérieure d'architecture de Paris, La Villette, an architecture college in the French capital, with 9 other elite students from Pyongyang's prestigious Kim Il-sung University. Given that Han is the son of a reportedly purged aide of Jang Sung-taek, there are rumors the North Korean regime is still not done with getting rid of Jang's inner circle and their associates. If the assumptions are found to be true, the case could spark a huge diplomatic row between France and North Korea. especially in the wake of the EU-drafted UN resolution that calls for the North Korean leadership to be brought before the International Criminal Court. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, fresh from a meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's special envoy, has been hailing the benefits of maintaining a close relationship with North Korea. Russia's TASS news agency reports Putin said Wednesday that deepening political as well as economic cooperation with the North will contribute to regional security and stability in both countries. His comments come a day after his meeting with Choi Dong-hae, who is midway through his roughly week-long trip to Russia. Choi Dong-hae and the rest of his delegation are also scheduled to meet with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Thursday for more talks. But just as the hour-long talks between Choi and Putin earlier this week, they will be held behind closed doors. And a joint railway project between both Koreas and Russia is picking up pace. Industry insiders say a South Korean consortium will test a transfer of 35,000 tons of Russian coal from the Najin port in the north to South Korea's southeastern port city of Pohang starting next Monday. The coal will be delivered from Hasan to Rajin on the recently renovated 54-kilometer railway. Seoul, which banned investments in North Korea after the regime torpedoed a South Korean warship in 2010, has allowed the consortium to indirectly invest by purchasing Russian stakes in the initiative. The efficiency of the latest venture will ultimately determine the future of trilateral cooperation and President Park Geun-hye's Eurasia initiative of connecting logistics infrastructure between Asia and Europe.
South Korea has taken a big step forward in making its latest K2 tank a completely homegrown piece of military hardware. The military says the new tank will help it close its numerical shortfall against North Korea. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The last batch of 100 K2 Black Panther tanks installed with the combination of a German-made engine and transmission systems were put into service this year. The combinations are often referred to as power packs. South Korea started developing its own power packs in 2005, but the military knocked them back as they weren't deemed powerful or reliable enough. That is until now. Nearly a decade after development began, Korean power packs are now being fitted to the South Korean military's K2 tanks. The power packs enabled the tank to go from 0 to 32 kilometers an hour in just 8.7 seconds. Officials say that makes them fast enough to evade enemy anti-tank missiles.
The next batch of K2 tanks will fit future battlefield environments as they have enhanced mobility, firepower, and defense features.
North Korea has a sizable advantage over South Korea when it comes to the number of tanks it has, but most are believed to be antiquated. The North Korean military has 3,500 tanks at its disposal. The South, just 2,400. Seoul plans to reduce the numerical gap by dispatching these latest tanks.
K2 tanks are far more advanced than the previous K1, so when they are fully deployed, South Korea will have the North Korean military on its toes.
The South Korean military says K2 Black Panther tanks will be in service by 2017. Officials hope to also sell the K2 to overseas buyers in the coming years. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, in economic news, research institutions continue to lower their growth forecast for the Korean economy, not only for this year, but also for the next. And with deflation woes mounting, most private institutions say inflation will only stay within the 1% range next year. That's lower than the government's outlook of 2%, and this could affect domestic sentiment in 2015, as our Song Ji-son reports.
Slow growth and low inflation are making it hard for Seoul to reach its growth forecast this year. Korea's economic recovery has lost momentum since April's deadly ferry disaster, which dented domestic sentiment, and it appears the trend may continue well into next year. In July, Seoul slashed its growth forecast for this year from 4.1 to 3.7%. But that's still higher than the market median, which stands at 3.5%, according to financial data released Thursday. It's the same story for next year's growth outlook. While the Korean economy is expected to grow at a relatively faster rate compared to this year, the Korean government stands alone with a forecast of 4%, with others expecting the figure to fall in the 3% range. The inflation forecast for next year from private institutions rests in the 1% range, nearly a percentage point below the government's outlook. That suggests the inflation will hover in the 1% range for the third consecutive year. Slowing domestic demand coupled with falling oil prices will only compound the issue, which may sound like a good news for consumers, but not in the long run.
Once prices continue to fall, both consumption and investments shrink on expectations they will fall even more, leading to further deflation. To avoid such a recession, the government must facilitate the domestic economy in a way that boosts both growth and prices.
A weak Japanese yen, slowing growth in China, as well as an end to U.S. quantitative easing are also casting a shadow on the Korean economy as downside risks for the coming year. 송지선, Arirang News.
Now, in just about 3 weeks' time, leaders from the 10 ASEAN countries will be in Korea for a special summit with President Park Geun-hye. The event is being held to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Korea's relations with ASEAN, which has seen a very rapid development over the years. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
The 2014 ASEAN ROK Commemorative Summit will kick off in Busan on December 11th. The two-day meeting invites leaders from 10 Association of Southeast Asian Nations member countries, like Myanmar and the Philippines. Up for discussion are ways to expand cooperation between Korea and the ASEAN countries, as well as global issues such as climate change and disaster relief measures. Since establishing diplomatic ties in 1989, ASEAN has become Korea's second-largest trade partner and investment destination. The region is also one of the most popular vacation hotspots, with over 4 million Koreans visiting the bloc every year. The commemorative summit is expected to further bolster the relationship.
Last year, President Park Geun-hye proposed a vision for partnership for trust and happiness in defining Korea-ASEAN relations for the future. The commemorative summit will present a comprehensive blueprint to realize this goal and will be an opportunity to celebrate 25 years of friendship between Korea and ASEAN.
The leaders will engage in bilateral meetings and enjoy a welcoming dinner on the first day of the event. The ASEAN ROK Commemorative Summit will take place on the second day, followed by a joint press conference. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, it's only November, but an early winter blizzard has pounded the U.S. state of New York and sent a blast of frigid air throughout the country. For more on this and other global headlines, we're now joined by Eunice Kim from the News Center.
Eunice, the snowstorm has turned deadly, unfortunately, killing at least 7 people, with most of the casualties of this very unusual weather seasonally in New York State.
That's right, Mark. About half of the country is said to have seen snow on this third week of November, but the brunt of the havoc is being bared by regions near Buffalo. Residents there are bracing themselves for a year's worth of snow over a period of 3 days. Connie Lee has more.
New York is bracing for more snow as residents are still recovering from this week's deadly blizzard. At least 7 people were killed from being buried in the snow, traffic accidents, or heart problems. As some residents start to dig themselves out from the massive snowbanks, New York's governor is urging residents to stay indoors.
When we say stay home, really stay home. Going out on the roads is dangerous. It's unnecessary. You're not going to get anywhere. You will get stuck, and then you will further complicate the situation.
More than 100 National Guard members have been deployed to help clear the roads and remove abandoned vehicles. Dozens of cars were stranded all around the state on Wednesday, with some passengers being stuck for nearly 30 hours before being rescued. Buffalo, New York State's second most populous city, was hardest hit with about 1.5 meters of snow. The National Weather Service predicts that some areas could break single-day records for snowfall. This early cold blast of winter has actually affected much of the country. Officials say all 50 U.S. states had areas that hit the freezing point on Tuesday, and the southern and northeast regions are expecting more record-breaking cold temperatures in the coming days. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And staying with the U.S., President Barack Obama took to the White House Facebook page, that is, to give a heads up on a big unveil he'll make soon on the contentious issue of immigration.
Tomorrow night, I'm going to be announcing here from the White House some steps that I can take to start fixing our broken immigration system.
That announcement will take place 8 p.m. Thursday Eastern Standard Time, or roughly 22 hours from now, and is expected to extend protection to as many as 5 million illegal immigrants facing deportation. Among them will be parents and spouses of U.S. citizens and permanent residents who have been in the country for at least 5 years. That includes 250,000 farm workers without work permits, according to a related labor union. The go-it-alone approach, though, is expected to raise the heat between the president and his Republican-controlled Congress. Some conservative lawmakers have threatened impeachment and a government shutdown should executive action materialize. Police have recovered the bodies of Miss Honduras World and her sister, both missing since they were last seen leaving a party in a plateless car last Thursday. 2 men were arrested in connection to the disappearance of 19-year-old Maria Jose Alvarado and her 23-year-old sister, one of whom was described as the boyfriend of the sister. He reportedly confessed to shooting and killing the 2 young women and led authorities to their burial site, a shallow grave in a field by a river. Police said they also had in their possession the murder weapon and the vehicle used prior to the crime. Now, Maria Alvarado had been crowned the year's Miss Honduras World back in April and was to board a plane to London soon to compete in the Miss World pageant. And finally, Paris has confirmed that a second Frenchman was among the executioners in that latest propaganda video released by the Islamic State group. Its prosecutor's office named the man as 22-year-old Michael dos Santos from an eastern Paris suburb. The earlier identified French militant was Maxime Hochard from Normandy. According to Le Monde, more than 1,100 French nationals are believed to be engaged in the jihadist fight in Syria and Iraq, with nearly 400 on the front lines.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea, connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at Noon with Mark Broome and Eoh Jin-joo.
I'm Eoh Jin-joo.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about.
Korea is hanging hopes on its content industry to boost exports and generate revenue in the coming years, and a new report suggests those plans will actually bear fruit. According to the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute on Thursday, content sales are expected to expand more than 30% in 2020 when compared to this year to some $85 billion. Exports of K-pop music are expected to lead the way in terms of sales growth, increasing by 66% from this year, followed by television programs, advertising, and the gaming and film industries. The global tablet PC market, which has underwhelmed many this year, is expected to bounce back with double-digit sales growth next year. U.S.-based market tracker Strategy Analytics estimates this year's global tablet sales will grow just 9% from last year to 247 million units. However, it says the market is forecast to surge by 18% in 2015 with the appearance of low-priced tablets with larger screens. In the third quarter this year, Apple and Samsung Electronics saw their market share slip slightly. A low-priced Chinese-made tablet called White Box came out on top, taking 30% of the global share.
Now, insects may be viewed as pests that we'd rather do our best to avoid, but their value is being harnessed to help local farmers produce more fruits and vegetables. In fact, the insect industry is a market that's expected to boom in the near future, especially right here in Korea. Our Kim Min-ji explains.
Bumblebees are used for cross-pollination in fruits and vegetables that lack honey, such as tomatoes or eggplants. But Korea did not have the technological capabilities to artificially produce these bugs, which usually nest underground and had to rely on imports up until 2002. But it's a different story nowadays. Of 80,000 boxes, each containing about 80 bumblebees, that were used on farms for cross-pollination last year, 70,000 were produced in Korea.
During the flowering season, some plants do not bear fruit because of the cold temperatures, but by using bumblebees, we can raise the seed-setting rate.
Other insects like the darkling beetle and the larva of the white-spotted flower chafer have been approved for use as food. Larvae in particular can be made into a selection of foods from cookies and salads to skewered foods. And for its high nutrient value, it is being pointed to as a new generation food.
If we see the overall distribution of nutrients, there is a mixture of carbohydrate, protein, and fats. It is similar in content to that of eggs.
The insects are not just used for food but cosmetics as well. And it's a market that's expected to grow to $630 million by 2020. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, I think I'll just have my normal lunch today. Now, in these fast-paced times, people seek out a number of different ways to detach and get some much-needed R&R. Some people opt for massages or spiritual retreats, or maybe even a nice vacation on a sunny beach. But how about prison? A very unique resort here in Korea actually offers visitors a chance to spend some time in prison away from the hustle and bustle of their everyday lives. Our Park Ji-won takes us there.
People from all corners of the country arrive at this center in the county of Hongcheon, about 2 hours to the east of Seoul, for a couple of days of rest and relaxation. They change their clothes and turn in their personal belongings, including their mobile phones. Participants learn how to relax their bodies and meditate at a mountain. However, that's not all. This program is called Prison Inside Me, and there's a reason.
The most special feature of the program is that participants spend the night in this prison cell alone. In this setting, totally disconnected from the outside world, people can access their deepest state of mind and relieve stress while reflecting on their own lives in peace and quiet.
The center offers dozens of rooms that resemble prison cells, where people willingly lock themselves up to ponder their lives without distractions or interruptions. Since the center opened last year, several hundred people have stayed here.
I feel more somber, as all the distracting thoughts inside me disappear, as I empty my mind.
But why prison?
I first came up with the idea when I was working as a prosecutor. I was totally exhausted and wanted to spend some time alone in prison to rearrange my life.
It's said everyone has their own prison inside them and that they live under its influences. We hope this program gives people time to reflect about the restraints they live under and how to free themselves from them.
For those seeking to regain a balance in life again, a couple of days outside of their ordinary lives can provide a restart button for their weary minds and bodies. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Well, pleasant late autumn weather is in picture today, with afternoon temperatures rising above seasonal averages. And mostly to partly sunny skies are in store, while a dry weather advisory remains in place for some parts of the east. So with that, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the daytime high in Seoul and Daegu will peak at 13 and 16, while Gwangju and Busan will rise to 14 and 17 respectively. Now, for other regions. It looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon should see a high of 15 and 14, while Dokdo will peak at 13. And it seems like we're going to have a light rainfall tomorrow evening for here in the capital, which could linger till Saturday morning, but accumulation will be less than 5 millimeters, so that shouldn't pose a problem for any outdoor activities. And temperatures should remain on the mild side through the weekend. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
This is where we say goodbye on this Thursday afternoon.
Yes, join us again if you can at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye.